Welcome, everyone, to Rising Out of the Chrysalis with Marisa Grace, where we share life stories of struggle and triumph, not only of my own life experiences, but also through the experiences of my guests, as a way to help you have breakthroughs and find hope in your own life. I'm Marisa Grace, and today I have a special guest, the amazing Kim, who has an amazing, inspiring story to share with all of us. So welcome, Kim.
Thank you so much for having me, Marissa. I am excited to be here and to interact with your audience. It is a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. So, Kim, introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, what you do, and tell us about your wonderful story that you want to share.
Absolutely. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Kim Martin Raymond. I'm a minister, spiritual life coach, author, and founder of Redefining You LLC, where I help my clients to realign themselves, mind, body, and spirit. And I'm also the host of the How Now podcast, where we talk about how to live in the now. And so those are just a few of the hats that I wear.
It's quite a few, but
yes,
wonderful ones.
It's quite a few, but we'll stop there because I really want to take time to share my story because it is one that has been the driving force behind a lot of what it is that I am privileged to do today. And the story that I'm sharing is regarding my daughter, Kathleen Marie Boyd. And we are coming up on the anniversary, unfortunately, of her death. My daughter, and I call her Kitty, she passed away on October 11th of 2009. She was 16 years old, and she had a brain aneurysm, and she passed in her sleep. Now, she had the type of brain aneurysm that when between the ages of 15 and 20, there are blood vessels at the rear of your head, and they burst between the ages of 15 and 20. And so they weren't anything that was detected. And what happened was they said when they burst, you either blood, covers your brain and you either pass away instantly or you wind up being in a vegetative state for the remainder of your life. Now, it's interesting because I have a background in special education. I was a paraprofessional from the time I was 18 until I was almost 26 years old. So I worked with children with special needs. I worked with children with, severe medical fragilities. And so, in retrospect, I was saying, if she would have been in a vegetative state, I was prepared to take care of her because those were the types of children that I worked with. I worked with children who had, traumatic brain injuries and children who had issues with speech and things of that nature. And so, God saw fit to take her, I have spoken to so many people who were just like, I don't know how I would be able to react to losing a child.
Yeah, I have two, and I would feel the same way because we're so connected to them, especially, as a mom, right? Because you're carrying that baby, you form this connection that, a dad might have a strong connection, but it's not usually the same as a mom, right? Because you share everything, while you're carrying them. And you have also this telepathic connection as well, That's why moms always sense when, there's something wrong in their children, right away, as opposed to like a dad. Now, how did this just happen suddenly? Were there any signs prior that, she was showing, or any, symptoms, anything?
Right. Well, what happened was, the day that she passed, I was in the middle of my master's program. And I was taking weekend intensive courses. And so I would take classes on Saturdays and Sundays for majority of the day. And then I would come home. And I saw her the night before. She was taking braids out of her hair. I was taking her to go get her hair braided because she was going to be off from school for Columbus Day. And so she was taking her braids down, and I saw her, and she had eaten something, and she had some foil sitting on the table, and she was putting the braids in there. I was like, "You plan on eating those?" And we got a little chuckle out of that. And I just told her, I said, "Don't stay up too late. And, I'll see you in the morning." And, gave her a kiss, told her I love her, which is something that we did all the time. I was like, "I love you back." And I went on to bed and went to school, and I came back, and she was in her room. Her room door was closed, and I came in and I said hello. And usually she'll come down, and she'll talk in one side of your ear, and create a hole on the other side of your face, just because she was a talker. That was my talker. And so, I was waiting for her to come down. And that particular day, my oldest daughter was complaining of her throat bothering her. And so, I was looking, make sure she didn't have strep throat or anything like that. And something just said, well, just go ahead and let me change everybody's toothbrushes out just in case, she's got something going on with her throat. And so, I said to my husband at the time, I was like, I'm gonna run to the store and I'll grab some toothbrushes and I'll be back. And I did. And I said, "Where's Kitty?" And they were like, "Oh, she's been in the room sleep." And so I was like, "Well, she was up late doing her hair." So I was like, "Let me, I'll see her when I come back." Went to the store, came back. She still wasn't up. And so, I asked everybody, I was like, what color toothbrush do you want? I was asking everybody and everything. And I was like, let me go in there and get this child. And I went to open her door, and she was laying on the floor. And that wasn't uncommon because she was 6'1". So she was extremely tall for her age. And I was just like, okay. I said, what was the purpose of me getting this big bed for her, this oversized bed for her? She's always sleeping on the floor. And so I jumped down on the floor, and I was on her back, and I was like, wake up, wake up, wake up, baby. And went to go, and immediately I realized that she was not breathing. And so I stopped, and I turned her over, and I started to give her CPR. I'm certified in CPR and first aid, and went to breathe and realizing she was gone. And so I yelled to my husband, my daughter, I was like, she's gone, call 911. And they called 911 to come and get her. And the one thing that I remember about that day is that the last breath that was in her body was mine. And that was that's something that stays with me. And it took about 8 months before I could go in her room to remove the items from her bedroom. Every time I opened that door, I could still smell her. I could still feel her. And so it was difficult in the beginning. And I just remember that day when the coroner came and they brought her out. And I remember just, people started gathering because they saw the ambulance. And I've lived in my neighborhood since I bought my house back in 1997. So everyone knew us. They knew my family. And so when they saw the ambulance, my neighbors came out. People started coming out like, what's going on? Is everybody okay? And when I told them, immediately my neighbors they flooded my yard. Everybody was standing out there. And I remember as the coroner was taking her away, just standing out in the middle of the street and watching the truck go down the street. And I'm like, my baby is gone. And I just remember falling to my knees. And then I remember my neighbors all coming. They all created a circle. They prayed over me. They prayed over my family. And then, I called my parents, and they immediately flew in from New York. And it was surreal, of course.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I mean, that moment must have been like, is this really happening? This is not happening. It's just something out of a movie or something that it's not real, and it just
and there were just so many other things that were going on during that time in my life because my oldest daughter had just graduated college, and she was scheduled to move to New York. She was moving back to New York with my family because that's where I'm from. I'm from Queens. And she was going to be with my family. And my husband and I at the time were going through some marital issues. So I was in the process of getting a divorce at that same time.
Wow.
My third divorce, I have to say. So it, so in the midst of everything that was happening, my daughter still moved. I still divorced my husband in February. He moved out of that year. And for the first time in my life, I was living alone.
Oh, that must have been really tough.
That was tough because, I had my oldest daughter when I was 18. And then I got married shortly thereafter. And so there was never a time where I lived, I left my parents' house, moved into, a marriage, and moved into, our house there. And so there was never a time when I was by myself. And so for the first time in my life, I was by myself, and I had to sit with myself and had to try to figure things out. But before I get ahead of myself, a lot of people who were there to commemorate, or to be there for the memorial for my daughter. What happened was they didn't know what to say.
Yeah,
Because
that
I was
usually
the
happens
yeah
when there's a loss. They just, you know, that
they don't
happens
know
to
what
me.
to
Like, I
say.
don't know what, because you don't know what the other person needs to
Right.
hear, because
Right.
everyone is so different, right?
Yes. And that was the thing that was interesting for us, is that I was always the mama bear. I was the one that everyone comes to. Kim, what should I say? I don't know what to do. I don't know. And I was just like, and they said, but this time it's you. So we don't know what to say to, we can't ask you what to say to you about what happened. So people were just like, we don't know what to say. And I just said, you know what, just be there.
Yeah, sometimes no
And
words
right. And
is
just
all
and
you
just give
need,
the
just like a
opportunity.
hug or,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, their presence or,
That's it. You give the person an opportunity to tell you what it is that they need. Because what happens is, when you lose someone that close, everyone is coming and rallying, and you're trying to organize and figure out what you're going to do and how
yeah,
you're going to do it. Because now here it is, I'm faced with the question of, how do I
move
bury my
forward.
child?
Yeah, how are you
How
gonna
do
get up?
I do that? And I mean, my
Yeah.
parents came down immediately, of course, and they were here. My mom's dear friend is a mortician, and so I at least had someone to help to point us in the right direction, and kind of tell me what it is that we needed to do. So my daughter was cremated, and I did that for a reason, because I knew that she was young. I knew that we were going to have a memorial that would have some of her peers that would be there. And, you know, people take pictures, and they were doing all of
Mhm.
these things, and you've seen it on
Yeah.
social media, people taking pictures of people laying in caskets and things. And I just did not
Yeah,
want
that's
that
not like
for my daughter.
yeah.
Right. I wanted people to remember her the way that they saw her. So I had a huge picture made of her, and people were able to look at that picture and remember her that way. She had a very dear friend, and before she was laid to rest, and before she was cremated, they allowed us to see her one more time. And her dear friend asked if she could come, and she was able to see her and say goodbye. So my daughter was cremated. She was a avid book reader. She loved to read. And so my mom's friend got her um got her an urn that looked like a stack of books.
Oh,
So it was
nice.
a stack of books, and she had a teddy bear named Winnipeg. That was her favorite teddy bear. So I have a friend who made a like a plastic case, and the stack of books, the urn is in the case, and the teddy bear has its legs open, and so the stack of books is between the teddy bear's legs, and her head is kind of resting on top of the books. And my daughter
That's
loved
nice.
butterflies and the color yellow, so she has a little yellow butterfly stuck in her hair, the teddy bear does, and is leaning against the books. And so that's how she is memorialized. And
Oh, that's beautiful.
it is beautiful. And then, because she was so tall, all of her remains could not fit in the urn. So what they did was, my mom's friend had them scatter the remainder of her ashes in New York. And what they do is, the co-star the Coast Guard gives you the longitude and latitude of where they had her remains sprinkled. And it was such a wonderful representation because we moved from New York when she was 3, and so the rest of her remains with me, but still a part of her
You're
is
still
in New
part
York
in New York. That's a
where she
wonderful
was born.
thing.
So
Yeah.
that was just a wonderful um way to
Commemorate her.
to commemorate her. And we had a service at her high school because she was a rising senior, and we had a memorial at her school. And so my job had given me a huge peace lily that I still have 13 years later. I still have that peace lily. It's in my living room. It is huge. So I have a peace lily that they gave me. And she was in the marching band. So the band played. She
Oh,
was in
that's
the choir
wonderful.
sang, the boosters danced at her memorial. And then because she was in so many different activities, she was in the 4-H club, she was in what is it, mock trials and things like that. So she was in a couple of activities at school. And so the children made a CD with pictures and sayings like, "We miss you. You'll always be our friend." She always called all of the kids, she always called them ninjas. So they were like, "We will always be your ninjas. We love you," and everything.
That is
And
just so
and they put
beautiful
together
to
a
have, like,
beautiful
yeah.
CD that I still have to this day. And then we did a service for her in New York because both of my grandmothers were living at the time, and they were up in age. And so instead of having them come to Atlanta where I live, we went back to New York and took her remains with us, and we did a memorial with the family there. And so, people who knew me from, back home, who really didn't have an opportunity to know Kitty well, but they wanted to be there, they were able to be there. And then my family that I have here in Atlanta. So it was a wonderful memorial. But the one thing that was
Yeah.
special about that
Uh-huh.
is that the 2 years later, well, a year later, when she would have graduated, the students there asked the principal, and it was a new principal. They said that we have a friend who passed away, and we would like to honor her at this graduation. So they asked me to
Oh,
come back.
wow.
They asked me to come back, and they laid a cap and gown across the chair and called her name. And and they had the big banner with her picture on it, and they
That
called her
is just
name.
so beautiful.
And it
That's
was so
amazing.
wonderful. And I mean, and at her memorial, there were over 200 people who were there, and each person came up and told me a story about something that she did to touch their lives. And there was a young lady who was in a wheelchair, and she said, "I just started school not too long ago, and Kitty came up to me, and she said, 'You must be new here.' And because of my background in special education, she has a heart. She had a heart for
For
children with
special
special needs.
needs.
And she said, well, come on over and have breakfast with us." And she said she made me feel so welcome. And the stories, and because
So
we had
she
been in the
definitely
same,
left a mark, a
she left
beautiful
a
mark in
footprint.
everybody's heart.
Yes, she did. Yes, she did.
That,
And I mean, it's interesting because even when I came back from the memorial, I had a double ear infection, had gotten sick, and I went to one of the little, the little places in the back of the Walgreens, the little stores that you go to. I mean, where you can see
yeah.
the little doctors back there. And I went back there and saw the doctor, and she said, "You're Kathleen's mom." And I was like, "How does this lady know me?" She was like, "Myself and my partner had a camp in the community behind where y'all live, and your daughter was a counselor." And I was like, "Yes, she was." And she was like, "She was a counselor." And I just remember how wonderful she was with the children.
Oh,
And so
wow.
here it was. I mean,
You're just getting like
people who I didn't
signs with
know.
people reminding
That's
you
right.
how wonderful she was.
That's right.
Now,
That's right.
Kim, how did you cope? Because that's, what everybody is probably gonna
Mhm.
want to know is like, how did you get through this? It's such a painful experience.
Mhm.
What
It was.
process did you go through to, you know, get through it? Because it is a process. It's not
It is.
something, you wake up the next day and
That's right.
you have to go through this whole process.
Right. And it was, I think the first process was being able to release. And what happens is, and it's something that's important to remember, when all those people are coming around you and then everybody's gone, that's when you need people the most. Because you're trying to process and you're trying to make sure that everybody's okay. And you're trying to make sure that everything is organized and you're trying to make sure that,
Yeah.
everything is
Well,
where
you're
it
busy.
needs to
Your
be.
mind is busy.
Yes.
They keep you busy. So you're
Right.
not thinking. And
Right.
then
And then
when the
everybody goes
silence
back off to their
comes,
normal lives.
yeah.
And here it was, I was divorced and my daughter, was moving away. So they were there initially and then they were gone. And I just remember sitting on the steps like, now what do I do? And that was something, it was a question that someone asked me. They said, Kim, now that you're there by yourself, you're divorced, your daughter is gone, you've empty nested, and unfortunately your daughter is deceased. What do you like to do? What are you going to do? And I couldn't answer the question. Marissa, I could not answer the question. I don't know, because I was so defined by the roles that I played. I was mom, I was wife, I was worker bee. Those are the things that I did. So I did not know how to function outside of that. I remember going to Walmart and filling up the cart with $300 worth of food. And when I got to the register, I remember it was just me. And then I was like, okay, I'll just grab the things that I like. And I wound up just leaving the cart there because I couldn't even figure out what I like. I didn't know
What
who
you
I
like.
was.
Yeah.
I didn't know who I was. And so I really had to sit with myself and I realized, who were positive people in my life and who were toxic people. And when the situation happened, it really caused me to have to sit down and say, okay, I need to know who are my circle, who are my people who I know that I can talk to and can speak comfortably about this and not know that it's going to take off down the street and is going to be spread to everybody else. Who can I talk to? So it was first creating that circle of people that were my confidants. And they wound up being 5 young ladies who I went to high school with, and we've been friends through everything. So that was, they were my, they were my circle. And so though, when I felt down, those were the people who I talked to. And just like I said, God does not make mistakes. He does not make mistakes. No. And so it was my faith that kept me going, knowing that there was a reason for this happening. And never once, Marissa, was I angry at God. Never did I
was
raise
gonna
my
say,
fist
yeah,
and say, why did you take her from me? No, because of my faith and because of the way I was raised, I immediately just said, okay, this happened for a reason.
You accepted it.
And I accepted that reason. Yeah. But I always knew that from the moment she was born, I gave her back to God. Mm-hmm. He gave her as a gift to me, and I gave her back to him. Lord, every day I prayed for my children, praying that, Lord, just continue to order their steps. I thank you for their lives. I thank you for blessing me to be their mother, but order their steps, guide them in the way you would have them to go. I'm giving them back to you, and she knew who God was. She had given her life to Christ. We were very active in the church. And so, I knew that it was just a matter of me giving her back, and that she was at home. She was at peace. She was where she needed to be, and she left her footprint here. And it was evidenced by all of the things that people did after she passed.
Yeah, all those reminders reminding you, yes, that she did her duty. She came here to, leave a print, and she did it. Yes. And they came to remind you that,
Yeah, and then what I did was I went into her room. And like I said, it took me 8 months, Marissa, before I was able to go in there and remove the things. Then I wanted to snatch her out of heaven because she was a hoarder. She had so much. She kept everything. There was a tuxedo that she wore because she was a ring bearer for my sister's wedding, and she kept that. I didn't even know she had kept it. And I was able to give that back to my sister, and she put it on a big teddy bear that she had because my sister collects teddy bears, and she was able to keep that. And I was able to keep a couple of keepsakes. The school let me keep her band hat. So the big hat that the marching band wears, they gave me that. She had a shirt that she made for me that said mom. And so there were a couple of things that I kept and I put in a keepsake little bin that I still have that just commemorate her. And more importantly than anything, Marissa, I cry when I'm sad.
When I that's the important thing to do is we have to cry. We have to let that out. And I'm sure, that still happens today when,
13 years later, there are some days where I just miss her or I've achieved something because she was my biggest cheerleader. Anytime I did anything, she's like, go mom, you're awesome. That was my cheerleader. And so anytime something huge happens in my life, I'm like, boy, I wish she was here. When my grandbaby was born, she would have been the best aunt ever because she was like Six Flags. The kids would come and she'd get on the floor. They'd call on her back. Everyone loved Kitty. And so, I was sad when my grandbaby was born because I was like, she's not going to get to know her auntie,
But in a different way, she is.
In a different way. We have a blanket that was made that has pictures of her and my brother, and I'll talk about that in a moment. My brother, and so she knows who she is. When my grandbaby sees the blanket, she's like, "That's Aunt Kitty, and that's my Uncle Reggie." Because what happened was when Kitty passed, a year later, my brother passed away. He was HIV positive, and he passed away of AIDS. And I was able to help my mom to deal with the loss of her child.
Isn't that amazing?
Things happen for
They do. There's a master plan.
Yes,
a play that we're not always aware of, or we don't understand it fully.
Right.
Until like later on.
That's it. But that was, like you said, the most important thing was, just being able to express my emotions. That's part of homeostasis. Just like when we get hot, we sweat. Just like when we're thirsty, we hydrate ourselves. When we're sad and we don't know how to deal with it, we have to allow our emotions to take their course.
Absolutely. It's so important that they do, because if we don't, what happens is they get clogged up in our bodies. They're going to get manifested somewhere in your body. And this is how we develop all kinds of sicknesses and diseases, because we are not allowing those emotions to express themselves. And it's so important to do it.
Like I said, I cry and I say, okay, I miss her. And then there are some times when I laugh out loud, because I could just look at her and she'd look at me and we would just bust out laughing because we just had this connection, and that was something that was so beautiful. I have such wonderful memories of her. And now, there are times when I may even consult her. Hey, baby, what do you think about that? And I just sit in silence and allow, those thoughts to come to my mind. What is it that, that you want mommy to know today? What is something that I can take with me? And so she's always with me in spirit. So I carry that with me, and that helps a lot. So I choose to not place blame, but to honor her and in all the things that she did. And a lot of the things I do, we hear nowadays, what's your why? She's my why. She's why I do the things that I do. She's the reason why I do my podcast. She's the reason why I do coaching that I do. She is the reason why. She is my
That is so wonderful, and such a wonderful way, to go about your life going forward, and knowing that she's guiding you through this process, right? She's still your cheerleader, even though she's not here in the physical. She's cheerleading you in a spiritual way, and cheering you on, and I'm sure she's so proud of you and everything that you've accomplished.
The one thing that you want to do is that you want to continue to live, and that's another thing that is important. My daughter lost her only sibling. My parents lost their second. They only had 2 grandbabies at the time. They lost one of their grandbabies. I needed to live for my daughter.
Yes.
For my parents, for my sister who lost a niece. I was not the only person that lost someone. They lost someone too.
Yeah.
And if I folded up in a corner, Marissa, and died or did nothing,
They would have lost
what
two
would have happened to
people.
my daughter? Right? What
Yeah.
would have happened to her? She lost her only sister.
Yeah,
They were only 4
absolutely.
years apart. And so they were close. And I had to remember to be present for her as well, because I was not the only person who was hurting. So was everyone else. And we have to be mindful of that. Yes, I gave birth to her. Yes, she was closest to me, but she was close to her sister, and through blood, the same blood that runs through her veins was the same blood that ran through my parents' veins, through
And that's
my
such a great
daughters.
point because, your other daughter is going through the grieving process too, and
Absolutely.
she needed you probably the most,
Yeah.
So, yeah, you have to be able to get through it, to be the
we talk
support.
about we talk about
Yeah,
empathy, and we talk about not discounting how other people feel, and that helped a lot too, because we were able to share memories. We were able to talk about things that only the three of us would know, that only my daughter and my daughter who is deceased and I, only things that we would know. I'd be like, remember, Christine, when Kitty and you and I did this, we talked about tips, we talked about things, we went through and looked at pictures, and we had more fond memories than we did sad ones. So it
that's
was wonderful
wonderful.
because she became a source of my strength. We were able to uplift each other, and that's something that's so important. Having people in place who just give you the space to ask for what it is that you need. And that's the most important.
Absolutely.
I wanted
That
people
is
to just
very
wait for me
important.
to tell them what it was I need, because I didn't at the time. I didn't know what I needed. This was all brand new to me.
Well, you
So
needed that
I
time, you
didn't
needed
know.
that alone time
Yes.
to figure it out. So,
Yes.
even in that aspect, it was like
Mhm.
perfect divine planning for you
Yes.
because you
Yes.
needed that alone time, that loneliness to figure that out.
And she became the source of my strength, like
Yeah,
all of our children are. Our children are never stumbling
absolutely.
blocks. Our children are stepping stones. So she became a different kind of stepping stone for me. I'm living in honor of your memory. So mommy's not going to sit down and fold up in the corner and be gone with you. Mommy's going to live for you
That is
and do
beautiful.
things, in honor of you. And that's what I'm going to continue to do. That's what she was most proud of. The fact that her mommy did so many things and was smart, and that was something that we always shared. She was very academic. People would say, oh, you're 6'1", are you a basketball player? She says, I'm not athletic, I'm academic. She played clarinet, and the people who would do our nails, they spray painted her clarinet and put her
Oh,
name on it. That
nice.
was beautiful. So
Well,
yeah,
Kim, this is
fond
such a
memories.
wonderful story, and you're such a wonderful person, such a strong
Thank
person.
you.
And I love that, you're able to transform this into such a
Yeah,
beautiful way
thank
and to carry it on into the wonderful work that you're doing right now. And I'll have a link, on how you can contact Kim below, the video cast
you.
below. So thank you so much, Kim. Thank you
It's
all
been
for
a
watching.
pleasure. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Please don't forget to share, like the podcast and subscribe so you can get notified when I release these videos. So
Mm.
until next time, thank you for watching.
Peace.
Peace.